The director of the Pan American Health Organization has stressed that the United States, surpassing 300,000 COVID-19 related deaths, underscores the human toll of this crisis and also warned of a concerning rise in cases in Brazil and Colombia. The European Commission President has called on all 27 EU member states to work together to begin vaccination programs on the same day, possibly before Christmas. The Nigerian government announced it is lifting the closure of its borders with neighboring Benin and Niger, which is imposed in August 2019 to curb the smuggling of rice and other commodities. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The director of the Pan American Health Organization has stressed that the United States, surpassing 300,000 COVID-19 related deaths, underscores the human toll of this crisis and also warned of a concerning rise in cases in Brazil and Colombia.
Deaths have surpassed 300,000, a milestone that underscores the human toll of this crisis. And as we look to South America, Brazil and Colombia are reporting the highest number of new cases, with a worrisome rise in infections, and that is happening within Brazil's southeastern regions. In Central America, Panama and Belize are seeing a rise in COVID-19 infections. Some hospitals in Belize are already over capacity, raising concerns about the availability of care. Meanwhile, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua are reporting relatively low COVID numbers overall. However, we should consider these trends with caution, since Hurricanes Eta and Iota may have impacted national surveillance systems, and many people have been displaced from the affected regions.
Meanwhile, PAHO Assistant Director Dr. Jarbas Barbosa said the goal continues to be to continue with the expectation that through COVAX they will have 2 billion vaccines available in 2021, but for the first semester of 2021, a realistic expectation is that there will be somewhere around 65 million doses of vaccines.
The COVAX vaccines will be delivered to every country at the same time. The countries which are paying for the vaccine, which is 27 countries in the Americas, as well as the countries that will receive donated vaccines. All of them will receive the vaccines at the same time and in quantities proportional to their populations.
The Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, Alicia Bárcena, reported Wednesday that gross domestic product in the region is expected to shrink by 7.7% in 2020, a figure lower than previous projection of a 9.1% fall.
Our figures are negative, all negative. It doesn't mean that we are much better off than we were in July, but the drops are a little lower. In the first 3 quarters, South America experienced a very sharp drop and is therefore one of the regions which will not see major growth. It has seen a drop of 7.3%. Probably the economy that gave us the biggest surprise was Brazil, which had a better recovery in the second quarter of this year. But, as we said, all the economies showed a significant recovery between the second and third quarter. If we consider Central America and Mexico together, we are talking about 8.5% drop in the gross domestic product. Mexico alone falls to a level of 9%.
Hundreds of Panamanians demonstrated this Wednesday in the capital in several parts of the interior of the country against Articles 832 and 129 and other measures affecting the population. Students and union leaders demand the immediate overthrow of the decree that regulates the delivery of the Solidarity Bond and eliminates the economic aid to a sector of the population and mainly to the young people. 20 protesters were detained by the Panamanian police on Wednesday in demonstrations led by youth and trade unionists against the government and the measures it's taking to confront the pandemic.
Once again, organized Panamanian youth go out to protest against Decree 830, which limits the rights of young people. In addition to this, we must indicate that the authorities of the country repress the young people who are protesting.
We are at Ley 5 de Mayo, where young people organized against Decree 830 are exercising our right to protest against these anti-people laws, against the Panamanian people. Today, youth suffer from high levels of unemployment and exclusion in our country.
And social movements in Honduras welcome the members of a Cuban medical brigade who arrived in the Central American country to provide assistance to citizens affected by the destruction of hurricanes Ida and Iota. Groups of Hondurans welcome a total of 25 medical professionals from the Henry Reeve International Contingent of doctors specialized in disaster situations and serious epidemics with a standing ovation. The Cuban professionals have been deployed to the northern region of the country, where they will install a field hospital for at least 30 days to attend the population most affected by the widespread floods sparked by the passage of the hurricanes through the region in November. This Wednesday, the government of Chile authorized the application of the Covid-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and biotech in the country. The Chilean Ministry of Health granted the approval for the vaccine after diverse analyses conducted by a commission of experts. Following the studies, the experts conclude that the vaccine is safe to use on the population. The first shipment of vaccine doses is set to arrive in the country on Wednesday, December 23rd, in order for the vaccination process to begin. The Workers' United Centers of Chile has condemned the pay cuts imposed by the government of Sebastián Piñera on public sector employees.
Here we understand, and I emphasize this point again, there was a prudent proposal regarding the reality we are experiencing in our country. No one wanted to undertake this negotiation beyond the context in which we are facing a pandemic, in a complex situation, because we know that the crisis is being paid for by workers, but that cannot mean that the executive expects workers to lower our expectations, because the state does not have the will to address the crisis that we are experiencing today.
And the Mexican President, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has called on the population to stay at home as the number of COVID-19 cases confirmed in the country surged past 1.25 million and the death toll hit 150,000.
If we can, let's not go out. Let's just go out only if it is necessary. In recent times, there have been more hospitalizations and more infections. I call on all Mexicans, both women and men, especially those of us from the capital, who live in Mexico City, to take care of ourselves over these coming days.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called on EU parliamentarians to work together so that all 27 member states can begin vaccination programs on the same day, possibly before Christmas. With pressure mounting on the European Medicines Agency to speed up its preview of the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine, the European official expressed hope that within a week the first vaccine will be authorized so that vaccinations can start immediately, noting that the agency has decided to expedite its hearing on the efficacy and safety of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine from December 29th up to December 21st. Von der Leyen expressed confidence that the virus could be beaten if members of the bloc united. She stressed that up to 70% of the population needs to be vaccinated in order to overcome the pandemic. And the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is resisting calls to tighten coronavirus restrictions over Christmas, as the capital, London, faces stricter measures and concern grows about rising case numbers, instead insisting that the population take measures to protect itself.
The overall situation is, alas, worse, more challenging than we'd hoped when we first set the rules. So, while it would not be right, we think, to criminalise people who have made plans and simply want to spend time with their loved ones, we're collectively, across the UK, governments at every level, asking you to think hard and in detail about the days ahead and whether you can do more to protect yourself and others.
French Prime Minister Jean Castex announced that the first vaccinations against Covid-19 in the country could start as early as last week of December. The mass vaccination is scheduled to start on December 21st, and this first phase will be extended for a period of 6 to 8 weeks to take into account the 21-day period between the first vaccination and the booster. Castex explained that in a second stage, the injection will be offered to about 14 million people who present a risk factor linked to age or to a chronic illness, as well as to certain health professionals. Meanwhile, the rest of the population will be vaccinated as supplies become available in a third stage at the end of the spring. And also, Denmark Prime Minister announced that the country will shut malls and shops over the holidays as coronavirus cases continue to rise. Earlier this week, Denmark had already extended nationwide measures in large cities across the country and most of the country, including the closure of bars and restaurants, schools, sporting facilities and cultural centers.
Denmark will be truly shut from Friday, December 25 to January 3.
The new restrictions are not for fun, but because they are necessary for the entire society.
It is our own actions and choices which will determine how Denmark comes through this crisis. I ask all Danes to show the same strength and the same community spirit which allowed us to get through this springtime.
On Wednesday, the Czech Republic launched a program of nationwide testing for COVID-19. The voluntary free testing began at hundreds of sites across the country and will last until January 15. The results of the rapid antigen test will be known up in 20 minutes. Those testing positive will be retested with a more precise PCR test. The Czech Republic has been facing a rise in new coronavirus infections throughout December. The government decided to tighten these restrictive measures, which include the closure of bars, restaurants and hotels, and reimpose an overnight curfew as of Friday. So far, the country has registered over 594,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 10,000 fatalities. According to figures from Johns Hopkins University, the United States recorded on Wednesday over 3,700 fatalities and 250,000 cases of COVID-19 in 24 hours, a double record since the beginning of the pandemic. With new cases of the infection in California averaging more than 32,000 a day, nearly as many as the entire U.S. was seen just 3 months ago, hospitals in parts of the state are running out of space in intensive care wards. The number of available intensive care unit beds in California's San Joaquin Valley is hovering near zero. In Fresno County, officials said just a few ICU beds remain available and were filling rapidly. To keep up, the county's hospital system has contracted with a Virginia company to supply doctors, nurses and others to staff a temporary 50-bed facility that will start receiving patients by the end of the week.
Been very concerned about the trend that we're going through, and right now we're in really high capacity in all the hospitals in the Central Valley. I'm talking specifically about Fresno. So we have a very high number of patients in-house at this point. There's so much stress on us, nurses and physicians, and all the healthcare workers are really working so hard through this, hours and hours and hours and hours per day, non-stop. People are taking 2 shifts just to, get through this.
In the Central Valley, we have a lot of migrant communities, farming communities. These communities tend to have higher morbidity. They already have higher burden of disease, underlying health conditions. Also, their access to healthcare is not as easy as perhaps other communities.
And nursing homes around the U.S. state of Florida began vaccinating patients and staff against COVID-19 this Wednesday with doses of the first U.S.-approved vaccine against the disease that has killed more than 20,000 people in the state.
You get vaccine out, as you have this protection, you can have people return to a more sense of normalcy. I think they've done a great job here and given their seniors the ability to thrive. But I mean, some of these facilities, they have really intense mitigation. They don't have as many options, and the residents, even though we've supported visitation and everything we can, they're still not back to where they were pre-COVID. So this really helps, I think. It helps save lives, but it also helps increase the quality of life for some of our most vulnerable residents.
The President of the United Nations Economic and Social Council has stressed that as the COVID-19 pandemic toll rises, the poorest countries and the poorest people have been hit the hardest.
Rises, we continue to deal also with severe disruptions in societies and economies around the world, with deep impacts on health, education, economic growth, financial displacement and stress, and breakdowns of social systems. And as usual, it is painfully obvious that the poor amongst us, the poorest countries and the poorest people in those countries, have been hit hardest.
Global COVID-19 cases have now passed 73 million, while the death toll stands at over 1.6 million. During the last 14 days, more than 8.7 million new cases have been reported. The United States is the most affected country with more than 16.8 million infections and over 300,000 deaths. It's followed by India with more than 9.9 million cases and over 144,000 fatalities. Brazil places third in the world with over 6.9 million cases. However, it ranks second in terms of its COVID-19 death toll at over 182,000. The United Kingdom has the fourth highest death toll in the world at over 65,000 and the highest in Europe. And we have more stories coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Nigerian government announced it is lifting the closure of its borders with neighboring Benin and Niger, with it imposed in August 2019 to curb the smuggling of rice and other commodities. Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed told a press conference that 4 land borders will be reopened immediately, while the remaining borders are directed to be reopened on or before December 31st. She also said that under President Muhammadu Buhari's instructions, the ban on importation of rice, poultry and other banned products remains in place and will be implemented by border patrol teams. Buhari stunned Nigeria's neighbors when he unexpectedly closed the country's borders to God's trades, saying the time had come to crush contraband trade. The unilateral move was criticized for violating commercial and freedom of movement treaties signed under the Economic Community of West African countries. The closure had a major impact on Benin, a key exporter of foodstuffs to Africa's most populous country, and had a devastating impact on border communities in Nigeria. A Nigerian student who escaped Boko Haram kidnappers in the northwest of the country has offered details of his ordeal, noting that he was kept in the forest with other classmates for 2 days before managing to get away. Parents have been gathering at the schools daily since the abduction last Friday, desperate for any information about the children's fate. According to security forces, Boko Haram recruited 3 local gangs to kidnap hundreds of schoolboys in its behalf. The jihadist group has claimed responsibility for Friday's attack, which targeted a secondary school in the town of Kankara in Katsina State. The government has not immediately reacted to Boko Haram's claim or confirmed its authenticity, and the number of missing students remain unclear. Either 320 or 330, according to 2 accounts by officials, while locals in Kankara put it at more than 500.
On Friday, during night, when we come back to our houses, we finish the night prep. Suddenly, when we come back, we are preparing to sleep. Suddenly, we hear the gunshot, and every student was run away from the hostels. I spent 2 days in the jungle in the forest on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. On Sunday, I came back to our town. When they tell us to wake up and starting movement, so I didn't wake up. I sleep under the tree. I didn't wake up, and I am praying. I didn't stand, and I am sleeping under the tree. I didn't wake up. They moved the others to go, but me, I didn't go anywhere. I am under the tree. I am sleeping, so they moved and leave me there.
An UN-manned Chinese spacecraft carrying rocks and soil from the moon has returned safely to Earth in the first mission in 4 decades to collect lunar samples. The capsule carrying the samples collected by the Chang'e E5 space probe landed in northern China's Inner Mongolia region, and the China National Space Administration's director declared the mission a success. With this mission, China became only the 3rd country to have retrieved samples from the moon, following the United States and the Soviet Union in the 1960s and the 1970s. Chang'e E5, named after a mythical Chinese moon goddess, landed on the moon on December 1st and left after collecting the samples 2 days later. Scientists hope the samples will help them learn about the moon's origins, formation, and volcanic activity on its surface. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.